This is No One From Nowhere, and you are, and I am a spirit of God. Today I want to talk to you about the Anunnaki story of Enki, first Nephilim, Elohim on earth. Biblical passage shown how humans are designed to eat food to boost their immune system to fight diseases and obtain optimal health. First, a realist joke. Don't let your anxieties get the best of you. Remember, Moses started out as a basket case. And also, if you're still looking for that special someone that will change your life, take a good look in the mirror. Enki is the god of creation, master shaper of the world, the god of life and wisdom, intelligence, crafts, god of construction trades, god of water, seawater, lake water, semen, fertility, magic, mischief, begetter of the gods. He is a god of the medical caduceus, kundalini energy, the seven chakras, creator of humans, DNA shaper of the world, and he is also a botanist, hydrologist, and is the god of healing. Biblical example of the God of healing in Numbers 21, 8 through 9. Then the Lord Enki told him, Moses, make a replica of a poisonous snake and attach it to a pole or a medical caduceus. All who are bitten will live if they simply look at it. So Moses made a snake out of a copper and attached it to a pole. Then anyone who was bitten by a snake could look at it and be healed. Why do you think it was copper? Because Enki was in charge of Earth's colony mining operations for his father, King Anu, on Nibiru, to assist their gold mining on Earth's colony some 450,000 years ago. Enki, the first Nephilim on Earth, and the benefactor of human beings. Enki, whose name at first meant Lord Earth, was given this designation when he landed on Earth. This was his name in his role as leader of Earth's settlement process and when he held full responsibility for Earth's development. Sitchin tells us that Enki was a brilliant scientist and engineer. Because of his expertise, he was also known by the nickname Nud-Medud, which means he who fashions things. Enki was Anu's firstborn son on Nibiru and was born of a non-frowned on liaison by Anu and one of his 6 concubines. While there was no censor of a king having the sexual services of concubines, that alternative liaison affected Enki by negating his position and future legacy under the rules of succession, particularly after Enlil was born by Anu's proper relationship with Anu's half-sister. When Enlil came to Earth, Enki's name was changed to Ea, whose home is water. Sitchin tells us that Ea appeared to have accepted Enlil's succession status, but some who have studied the tablet evidence closely believe a power struggle continued between Ea and Enlil, and may have continued well into Earth's history. Sumerian scholar Samuel Noah Kramer titled one of the ancient texts he studied, Enki and his inferiority complex. Kramer's choice of words for the title of this tablet speak volumes about Enki's behavior. Enki held the requisite skills and knowledge that supposed his work as a master engineer and hydrologist. As mentioned earlier, Enki's first terraforming activity was to build a great house called Eridu, home of going afar, on land raised well above the water level. Sitchin tells us that another translated tablet text was named The Myth of Enki and Eridu. By Samuel Noah Kramer, it chronicles Enki's building project. The Lord of the watery deep, the King Enki, built his house. In Eridu, he built the house of the water bank. The king Enki, he built his house. Eridu, like a mountain, he raised up from the earth, in a good place he had built it. Great pains are taken in the Sumerian text that Sitchin highlights to discuss Enki's house, which remained Enki's seat of power and center of worship throughout Mesopotamian history, and was built on ground artificially raised above the waters of the marshlands. After landing on Earth, it is also reported to have built dikes to control incoming water from the Tigris rivers. He is also the forerunner of the Greek adaptation of this role centuries later as Poseidon. The underlying theme of Enki's relationship to water, though not identified as more than a few words, was his concern for having a portable water supply to sustain life for all the occupants of his household, gods, humans, and animals, after he landed his holdings in the gardens and established his gardens and orchards. Having a sufficient safe water supply for consumption and for irrigation of plant-based foods was important for survival. Enki's worries about water qualities was well-founded because its regions, like Sumer, where rain is forthcoming only in cool weather, irrigation using good water was and is necessary to keep gardens and food-bearing tree crops alive in the spring and summer growing seasons. 450,000 years ago, some 5,000 years before, about one-third of Nibiru years after Alulu's escape and journey from Nibiru to Earth, Anu authorizes his son, Ea, i.e., whose home is water. Enki is to travel with a group of 50 Nephilim to the 7th planet in order to verify that Alulu's claims are accurate and true. Within 6 days of their landing, the settlement of Eridu, i.e., home in the far away, or Earth Station 1, in the region that named the Eden, is established by Ea and his group. The Nephilim, who have traveled from their home planet Nibiru to the 7th planet, received the name Anunnaki, i.e., those who from heaven to earth came down. The Hebrew tradition of the 6 days of creation may have derived from the early recorded Sumerian account of the landing of the Nephilim and their establishment of Eridu. That account noted that certain tasks were performed on particular days, such as the investigation and recording of herbs, trees, and other plant life on the 3rd day, and the investigation and recording of all the creatures which crept or walked on the 6th day. Ea proclaimed that the 7th day would be a day of rest. The Sumerian word Eden translates as home of the righteous ones. It was in the Eden that the city Eridu was established. The name has been translated into all languages of the world, including Eridu in German, Earthy in Middle English, Ertz in Kurdish, and Uretz in Hebrew. The word also came to be what English-speaking people call earth. This is where we get Ea, or earth, name. 445,000 years ago to 360,000 years ago, the arrival of more of the Nephilim requires that the settlement on Earth be expanded. Within the period, Enlil, and later his father Anu, travel from Nibiru to Earth to determine if gold retrieval can be increased because of what has been delivered to Nibiru is insufficient to repair all the breaches in Nibiru's atmosphere. A Sumerian text related that after kingship had been lowered from heaven, after the exalted crown, the throne of kingship, had been lowered from heaven, he perfected the procedures, the divine ordinances, founded 5 cities in pure places, called their names, laid them out as centers. The first of these cities, Eridu, he gave to Ninimud, the leader. The second, Bad Tiberia, he gave to Nugug. The third, Telerik, he gave to Palpasag. The fourth, Sapur, he gave to the hero Utu, Shemesh, later. And the fifth, Shurapek, he gave to Sud. The gold which had been retrieved thus far had come from the ocean. As such, it was already in a refined state and ready for use. After pulverization, Ea traveled across the lands of the earth in a sky chamber in search of gold or bearing rock. He found a sizable quantity in the Abzu, i.e., the southern lower nether region, which corresponds to the present-day region of southern Africa along the Zambezia River. On Nibiru, the Nephilim were becoming impatient for the much-needed gold. Enlil was directed by his father, Anu, to travel to the seventh planet to find out why Ea's discovery of gold in the veins of the earth and his proposed to mine this gold had not been yet undertaken. On Earth, Ea explained to his brother the difficulties of mining gold ore from the rocks. They also discussed the situation of who should direct the mining operations and who should command the Eridu settlement. They called upon their father to come to the earth to decide the matters. Anu arrived on Earth and was informed by Ea about his findings, and they traveled to the Abzu to inspect the gold-bearing ore. The question of who should handle the operations was voiced, so Anu suggested that he, Ea, and Enlil should draw lots to decide who should be in charge of the home in the faraway, the gold mining operations in the Abzu, and even the kingship of Nibiru. The drawing of the lots resulted in Anu choosing to remain as king of Nibiru. Enlil was to become the lord of the command of Eridu and additional settlements in the Eden. Ea was to become the Enki, i.e., the Earth's master, and to oversee the mining of the gold in the Abzu. Alulu was left out of the drawing of the lots and it angered him. He challenged King Anu to another wrestling match to defend his honor. Anu agreed, and the two wrestled with Anu, subduing Alulu yet another time. But as Anu raised his foot from the fallen body of Alulu, Alulu chose to bite off his manhood. Anu survived and returned to Nibiru to be healed. Alulu was exiled by a court of the seven who judged to a life alone on the planet Mars, where he eventually died, and this is precisely why we have the face on Mars. 415,000 years ago, Ninhursag travels from Nibiru to the seventh planet Earth, holding the position of Chief Medical Officer. Her mission is to respond to medical complaints being voiced by the Anunnaki on Earth. Around 300,000 years ago to 100,000 years ago, about the 40th Shar, i.e. a Shar is 3,600 years, after the landing of the Anunnaki Nephilim on Earth, the Anunnaki who had been delegated to mine the gold in the Abzu staged a rebellion. Enki and Ninhursag contrived to create an alternative being to take over the tedious labor of the Anunnaki. After toiling for 40 periods, the Anunnaki mutinied and demanded relief. They approached Enlil begging for relief, but he did not want to satisfy their request, so they called on King Anu to provide relief. Enki, invariably the Anunnaki's protagonist, suggested that a Alulu, i.e. a primitive worker, aka the Lulu Amela, be created to bear the work of the gods. The process whereby mankind, Homo sapiens sapiens, i.e. the Lulu, the one that is mixed, was created and was genetically altered the Homo erectus beings that inhabited the earth prior to the coming of the Anunnaki. But rather than being a creation in the strictest sense of the word, the method by which Enki and Ninhursag brought the Adama into existence was by infusing the Nephilim Anunnaki lifeblood, i.e. the Nepesh or soul, into the beings which already inhabited the earth, the prehistoric Homo erectus. The life which inhabited this planet prior to the arrival of the Anunnaki Nephilim may have actually originated on the home planet of the Nephilim, Nibiru, and had been deposited on the planet when it collided with Nibiru. Therefore, the life forms, including the caveman, Homo erectus, would have been genetically compatible with the life forms of Nibiru in the most basic terms. The semen sperm of Enki was introduced into the egg of a Homo erectus female in the process known today as cross-fertilization, and the fertilized egg, the embryo, was then inserted into Ninki's womb, where it was nourished by her blood and grew into the Adama, which Enki named Adapa. The Adama was the first man, or rather the first kind of man, the Homo sapiens sapiens, or the civilized man. The first human being would be referred to in later times, and by the spiritual descendants of the Sumerians, i.e. the Judeo-Christians, as Adam. Enki and Ninhursag then created Kiwa or Titi, who would later be known as Eve. The unique thing about Adapa, Adam, or Kiwa, Eve, was that they, despite being crossbred of Nephilim and human genes, were now capable of reproducing on their own. In Adapa and the South Wind myth, Adapa was taken to Nibiru by his Nefilim kinfolk, Tamu or Dumuzi and Ningazida, to be presented to King Anu, but before leaving Earth, Enki gave to Ningasida a tablet containing the account of Adapa's creation from his own life force and the suggestion that Adapa should be prevented from eating and drinking of Nibiru food, which would grant to him and his descendants life based on the Nibiru Shar cycles of 1 year equal to 3,600 years. Anu gave to Adapa for his return seeds from which cultivated grains might be grown, and the life essence of sheep from which domesticated cattle may be raised. Adapa, Adam, and Kiwa, Eve, mated and bore twin sons whom they named Kiwan or Cain and Herval or Abel. Cain is he who in the field food grows, by the guidance of Ninurta, was instructed in the sowing and reaping of the grains the Nephilim gave to Adapa. His brother Abel, i.e. he of the watered meadows, by the guidance of Marduk, was instructed in the birthing and raising of animals. Adapa, the first man fashioned, later goes and acts as the advisor to the king of Eridu, when in the Sumerian kings list, the Me of kingship descended on Eridu. The Atrahasis epic tells of Enki to create a servant of the gods, humankind out of clay and blood. Against Enki's wish, the gods decide to slay Kingu, and Enki finally consents to use Kingu's blood to make the first humans, with whom Enki always later had a close relationship. The first of the 7 sages, 7 wise men, also known as Adapa, Enki assembles a team of divinities to help him, creating a host of good and princely fashioners. This next mythology contains to Enki and Ninhursag and the creation of life and sickness, and has to do with food and health. Enki and Ninhursag and the creation of life and sickness. The cosmogenic myth common in Sumer was that of the heroes' games, a sacred marriage where divine principles in the form of a dualistic opposites came together as male and female to give birth to the cosmos. In the epic Enki and Ninhursag, Enki as lord of Ab or fresh waters, also Sumerian word for semen, is living with his wife in the paradise of Dilmun, where the land of Dilmun is a pure place. The land of Dilmun is a clean place. The land of Dilmun is a clean place. The land of Dilmun is a bright place. He who is alone and laid himself down in Dilmun, The place after Enki is clean. That place is bright. Despite being a place where the raven uttered no cries, and the lion killed not, the wolf snatched not the lamb, unknown was the kid-killing dog, unknown was the grain-devouring boar, Dilmun had no water, and Enki heard the cries of its goddess, Ningasel, and orders the sun god Utu to bring fresh water from the earth for Dilmun. As a result, her city drinks the waters of abundance. Dilmun drinks the waters of abundance. Her wells of bitter water, behold, they are becoming wells of good water. Her fields and farm produce crops and grain. Her city, beholds, it has become the house of the banks and quarries of the land. Dilmun was identified with Berhan, whose name in Arabic means two seas, where the fresh waters of the Arabian aquifer mingle with the salt waters of the Persian Gulf. The mingling of waters was known in Sumerian as Namu, and was identified as the mother of Enki. The subsequent tale, with similarities of the biblical story of the forbidden fruit, repeats the story of how fresh water becomes life to a barren land. Enki, the water lord, then caused to flow the water of the heart, and having fertilized his consort Ninhursag, also known as Ki or Earth, after 9 days being her 9 months, the months of womanhood, like good butter, Nintu, the mother of the land, like good butter, gave birth to Ninsar, Lady Greenery. When Ninhursag left him as water lord, he became upon Ninsar, Lady Greenery, not knowing her to be his own daughter, but because she reminds him of his absent consort, Enki then seduces and had intercourse with her. Ninsar then gave birth to Ninkarar, Lady Fruitfulness or Lady Pasture, and leaves Enki alone again. A second time Enki in his loneliness finds and seduces Ninkarar, and from this union Ninkarar gave birth to Utu, weaver or spider, the weaver of the web of life. A third time Enki succumbs to temptation and attempts to seduce the seductions of Utu. Upset about Enki's reputation, Utu consults Ninhursag, who, upset at the promiscuous, wayward nature of her spouse, advises Utu to avoid the riverbanks, the places likely to be affected by flooding, the home of Enki. In another version of this myth, Ninhursag takes Enki's semen and plants it in the earth, where 8 plants rapidly germinate. With his two-faced servant and steward Izamud, Enki in the swampland lies stretched out. What is this plant? What is this plant? His messenger Izamud answer him. My king, this is the tree plant, he says to him. He cut it off for him, and he, Enki, eats it. And so, despite warnings, Enki consumes the other 7 fruit. Consuming his own semen, he falls pregnant, ill with swelling in his jaw, his teeth, his mouth, his hip, his throat, his limbs, his side, and his rib. The gods are at a loss to know what to do. The jargon they say, sit in the dust. As Enki lacks a womb which to give birth, he seems to be dying with swellings. The fox then asks Enlil, king of the gods, if I bring Ninhursag before thee, what shall be my reward? Ninhursag, sacred fox, then fetches the goddess. Ninhursag relents and takes Enki's ab, water or semen, into her body and gives birth to the gods of healing of each part of the body. Abu for the jaw, Nintel for the hip, Ninsutu for the tooth, Ningasi for the mouth, Dumuzi for the side, Inkasag for the limbs. The last one, Ninti, Lady Rib, is also a pun on Lady of Life, a title of Ninhursag herself. The story thus symbolizes, reflects the way in which life is brought forth through the addition of water to the land, and once it grows, water is required to bring plants to fruit. It also counsels balance and responsibility and nothing in excess. I appreciate you hanging in there, but this is the next part of the biblical passage where Enki, the god of creation, tells us exactly how humans should eat and live. Genesis 1:26. Then God said, "Let us make human beings in our image to be like us. They will reign over the fish in the sky, the birds, or the fish in the sea, the birds in the sky, the livestock, all the wild animals on the earth, and the small animals that scurry along the ground." So God created, or Enki, human beings in his own image. In the image of God he created them, male and female he created them. Then God blessed them and said, "Be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and govern it. Reign over the fish in the sky, the birds, the fish in the sea, the birds in the sky, and all the animals that scurry along the ground." Then God said, "Look, I have given you every seed-bearing plant throughout the earth and all the fruit trees for your food." We're going to stop right there, and I'm going to tell you how I live my life. So we have to take a look at this last statement. God said, or Enki, "Look, I have given you every seed-bearing plant throughout the earth and all the fruit trees for your food." Now, it's kind of a similar weird thing to think, well, how am I going to eat fruit all the time? But maybe this is to tell us that we're supposed to remain alkaline. And I want to show you, because we are earthlings, or earthlings, right? So we come from earth. We are made from the clay of earth. Therefore, if we use earth herbs like cayenne pepper and turmeric and other things, we will remain closer tied to the earth. This is precisely how I start my morning, and I wanted to share this with you to obtain an alkaline, high pH amount in your body. This is my first step in the morning before anything. I'm going to use a lime and a lemon if I have them, or just a half a lemon if I don't. And I'll put it in water. I'll put cayenne, turmeric in water, and I'll drink the whole thing. Now, to achieve my high pH, alkaline levels, I'm going to do a test strip every once in a while if I'm thinking that I'm low, but usually I'm okay because this is a normal, been doing this for 20 years. Next step is coffee. 1 shot in water, and, ingestion is very important, but also digestion is another very important measure. I do limit myself on caffeine and sodas. Do not drink sodas. In Genesis 1:28 and 9, God did not say any dairy. I do not eat or use dairy. This is a normal, if I'm working, a normal refrigerator, high in all kinds of citrus fruits. I have oranges, I have lemons, limes, grapefruit, all kinds of different fruits and vegetables. Very important. Between or before a meal, I'm using apple cider vinegar. It's apples, as God said, fruit for your food. The third thing that I do in the mornings is a smoothie. I start, if I have that product, is fresh fruit. Apples and bananas are my favorite. Now I have lots of mixes. One of the few things that I use is a green Sumberlini or chlorella. I use peanut butter, raw, good local honey, chia seeds, cocoa powder, raw, organic, high in vitamin C, and other little mixes that I've accumulated over the years. And I do try to use fresh greens if I can find them, and I do crack 2 eggs in the mix, just like Rocky. And one thing's for sure, I always give prayer and thanks to the gods. I highly recommend a B12. I take this sublingually, and the one on the right, boron, I use for my pineal gland enlightenment. It takes away some kind of calcium deposits left in your body, particularly in your pineal gland, in my opinion. Enjoy the surroundings. The swan was here today on the lake. Enki said in Genesis, fruits and plants and fruit for your food. Here is my little taco mix that I use today. I do eat ground beef and beef. I'm not at any means a vegetarian. And I do use an iron pan, which helps with iron. And an image of my taco. Obviously, the system is built on acidic foods. And I want to briefly talk about raising the chrism. Every 29 and 1/2 days, when the moon is in the sign of the zodiac that the sun was in at the birth of the native, there is a seed or psychophysical germ born in the or out of the solar plexus, or your heart, which is called the manger. And this seed is taken up by the nerves or branches of the semoya gastric nerve, and then becomes the fruit of the tree of life, or the tree of good and evil. Good if saved and cast upon the waters to reach the pineal gland, and if evil, if eaten or consumed in sexual suppression on the physical plane, or by alcoholic drink or gluttony that causes ferment acid and even alcohol in the intestinal tract. Thus, no drunkard can inherit the kingdom of heaven, for acids and alcohol cut or chemically split the oil that unites with the mineral salts in the body and thus produces the monthly seed. Revelation 22. Then the angel showed me a river with the water of life, clear as crystal, flowing from the throne of God and of the Lamb. It flowed down the center of the main street. On each side of the river grew a tree of life, bearing 12 crops of fruit, with a fresh crop each month. That leaves were used for medicine to heal the nations. That biblical passage is representative of the river of life, flows from one chakra to your highest crown chakra, hence illuminating your third eye or raising your chrism. I love you so much, but please remember that we have the DNA